Hi, I'm Ron Price. So glad to be back with you in this ongoing series we've been doing, talking about play nice in your sandbox at work based on my book. It's an ebook available at Amazon, 4 Ways to Prevent Conflict. We've already covered those. If you missed any, I encourage you to go to the San Juan Safe Communities website. You can see each installment of how to prevent conflict in your life. We're going to start now on the nice portion of the book, which is how do you deal with the conflicts that are too important to just brush aside? If you don't address them well, it's going to damage the relationship, it's going to hurt productivity, morale, what have you. So the N in this acronym is negotiate with, not against the other person. You know, so often when we get into a dispute with somebody else, it's easy to look at them as the problem. And when each person is doing that, looking at the other as the problem, then by definition, they're not doing anything to address the actual problem. So have the mindset, if you're in a conflict, a dispute, a disagreement, whatever you want to call it, with somebody else, rather than looking at them as the problem, step back and look at the problem itself. We'll talk more about that, especially next time. But I want you to think of negotiating with them that you and that other person both want the conflict resolved. You're not enemies, your situation is the enemy. And if you can somehow work together to address the situation, you're doubling your resources, doubling your efforts, twice as likely to get the situation resolved. So look at the other person as an ally, not an enemy. An ally who, like you, wants to get this resolved. I remember a case I did with 2 Farmington neighbors several years ago. They used to be friends. They did barbecues together. They were in each other's homes. But something happened. Somehow they got crosswise, and for the next several years, they were in and out of court, in and out of court, in and out of court, over barking dogs, honking horns, throwing trash, cutting vines. It didn't matter. They were nonstop menacing each other just on a regular basis. And I sat down and mediated with them. I got them to stop looking at each other as the enemy, as the problem. I got them normalizing that, hey, life happens, that things are going to get on our nerves. And together, they figured out how they wanted to resolve that issue. You know, you've heard the old expression, walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. That's great advice if you're in a dispute with someone, because once you've done that, you'll be a mile away from them and you'll have their shoes. Okay, bad joke, I'm sorry. But really, try to look at the situation from the other person's point of view. Again, we're going to look at that in a couple of weeks a little bit more. I mentioned before a Dr. Mark Goulston, who wrote the books Just Listen, Talking to Crazy, Get Out of Your Own Way. He makes a statement that it's hard to step on somebody's toes when you're walking in their shoes. And I just love the thought behind that. When you're in a situation, a conflict with someone else, trust me, it's probably just as annoying to them, just as uncomfortable for them. They're probably just as motivated to resolve it as you are. And if you'll have that mindset that says, hey, let's sit down together, let's us address the situation that's affecting us, and how can we best put it aside, remedy it so that we can go on with life, chances are you're going to resolve that conflict and maintain a good relationship with that person from then on. Folks, as I always say, conflict is inevitable. We are going to have conflict in our lives from time to time, but damaged relations are optional. If we can negotiate with the other person rather than against them, we're much more likely to resolve conflicts well. I hope you'll put that to good use. Look forward to being back with you next week.